Last year I was having lunch with a friend who is an artist and a mentor for me, and I was discussing, the general trials and tribulations. And she said to me, "The thing about your work, Hannah, is that it's absolutely brilliant." "Thank you," I said. "The problem is," she said, "nobody knows what you're doing." And I said, "I know I don't have a large social media following, it's just never really happened for me." No, she interrupted. "It is not about having a large following, it's about having the right following." And then she said, "Have you thought about hiring PR?" I was like, "What? Me? Hire PR? No, of course I've not thought about that. I'm not a celebrity. PR isn't for regular people. I can't hire PR, I don't even know what they do." She said, "Okay, Hannah, if you don't think they're for regular people, when you go home, Google your favourite artist with the word PR after it and see what comes up." I did as she said, and I realised that a lot of my faves actually had PR agencies. After a bit of thought, I decided to give PR a go as an experiment for one whole year. And well, I was listed in the Londonist, I ended up on websites like Creative Boom, I was on the BBC twice, I even got a double page spread in the Metro. So it turns out that PR really is a thing, and I have learned a lot in the past year. So today I'm going to share with you what I have learned, so if you were clueless like me a year ago, come and have a little peek behind the curtain. Hello, it's lovely to have you here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Hannah Bennyhood and I am a full-time artist and architect. On this channel, I share my creative journey and the lessons I've learned along the way. If that's something that you're into, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more. My studio is located in a building with 80 other creatives, and next door to me are sewers who are currently using their machines and playing music. And I don't want to be that kind of person who knocks on their door and tells them to turn it off. So if you can hear it, that's what that is. But look, I bought a little mic, I bought a microphone, so hopefully it's all better now anyway. Right, no more faffing, let's get into PR, shall we? Let's just start with absolute fundamentals. What is PR? PR is the practice of managing communications between either an organisation or an individual, like an artist, and with the audience. And it's all about creating and maintaining a positive reputation. So in a way, even running an Instagram account is essentially PR. But typically when we're talking about PR, we're talking about either like news coverage or articles, online and offline publications talking about an organisation or a product or a person. Let's just start with how people actually get written about, because this was something that I didn't really fully understand. When I thought about journalism, I thought about like investigative journalism of people kind of like out on the street looking for stories. When I saw artists being featured in articles, I assumed that they had been approached by the publication. Now, obviously, now and again this does happen, but typically what has actually happened is either the artist or their representation has actually reached out to the publication and pitched the idea of a story or an article. And when you think about it, this kind of makes sense if you think of how much content is need to be generated for the internet nowadays. There's definitely not enough money in journalism for people to be out there sourcing their own stories. So how does someone pitch an idea for an article or a write-up? If you have a project or an idea that you want to get publicity, the way that you do that is that you need to create a press release. You can look up how press releases are created. There's usually like a typical format for them: a headline, a hero image, a body of text, a link to assets, and the contact details for the journalist to follow up. One of the things that is absolutely vital if you want to get publicity is high quality, high resolution images. If you haven't got the ability to take these yourself, like me, I'm awful at taking photos of my artwork, you will almost definitely need to hire a photographer to try and make sure that you actually get some publicity. We are in such a visual economy right now. If you don't have good images, you're not going to get good press. The next stage of the process is to target the publications that you are interested in. There is no point sending your press release to the Financial Times if it's got nothing to do with the Financial Times. You need to be specific. A really good way to think about publications that are suitable for your work is just to think about the articles that you already enjoy or peers that do similar work to you and see who are writing about them. If you go onto some publications, you can actually see on their website specifically things that they actually ask for within their press releases. Some publications, such as Zine, even request exclusivity for some of their stories. Now, when it comes to PR, you can absolutely do this all yourself, but it is a lot of hard work and it's a lot of just being ignored. It's also super hard to find the right contacts, like literally the right email addresses, even if you find the journalists that you think would like your work. It's so time consuming and, in my opinion, quite soul destroying. Obviously though, doing it yourself is the most cost effective way. There is an option to pay PR specialists to do it for you, and this can happen in a variety of different ways. You can pay for PR to work specifically on one project, or perhaps if you have 3 projects that you'd like a PR person to work on, you can bundle those together and kind of try and get a discount for someone working for you for 3 projects. Alternatively, you can hire someone on a retainer, which means they roll on regardless of whether you have a project going live or not. Typically, the minimum amount that you can have a retainer is for 6 months, but they're usually a year. When it comes to how much PR costs, this can vary wildly. It can go from a couple of £100 all the way up to the thousands. I've done all these versions of PR in the past year. When I have done PR myself, I've mostly just been lucky with local press. I have had really good experience with like freelance PR people who just do it on the side of another job. But last year I actually decided to hire a PR agency. They're called After 9. They are run by Jennifer and Tamsin, and they specifically work in the worlds between art and architecture. They had worked with other artists that I really admired, so I wrote to them and asked them if they'd be interested in representing me. Before I committed to anything, we first had just a meeting to talk about my goals and objectives, and in that meeting is kind of when I got the vibe of like, oh yeah, like these guys get me, they understand what my work is all about, and I think we can work really well together. I ended up working with After 9 for 6 months, and the experience was absolutely brilliant. The majority of examples of press that I showed you at the beginning happened through After 9. So, what are you paying for? What will they do for you? First thing that they will do is they will write your press release for you. Writing is absolutely not my forte, so I can just write some shambolic description of what I'm trying to articulate, and they'll turn it into a press release that actually makes some sense, which is brilliant. They'll send it back and forth and you can make changes and tweak quotes and all that sort of stuff. They will also coordinate with other PR people that are involved in the project. For example, if you're working with developers, they might also have a press release and you want both of those press releases to work together, so they will work with other PR teams. It meant that I could genuinely say, I'll get my people to call your people, which I thoroughly enjoyed. They will also do the follow-up if you need specific quotes for the press release, and they will package all of that information together. The next thing that they will do is that they will go out and they will pitch their hearts out for you. So they'll have people in mind that they think will suit the story that you are pitching, and also you can give them target publications that you would like to be part of. They will do all the follow-up with the journalists, they'll arrange any interviews that need to happen, they will manage the assets, they will find out when and what is going to be published. If you have an event, they will invite people to it. Just anything PR related, you can just hand that over to them, which feels great. For me personally, I think that is what I found the most helpful, because when you're usually doing PR, it's quite timely. It's usually at the point where you release your artwork into the world. And for me, that usually coincides with the point where I usually feel the most exhausted and the most vulnerable, and generally I just want to hide under a rock and not talk to anyone, which is like the literal opposite of PR. I also think it's so much easier for someone else to big you up than you big up yourself. Like, it takes a lot of energy to like do self-promotion. The other thing about having professional PR people working for you, especially if they are specialists, is that they will have their little black book of journalists can approach and have existing and established relationships. That means that your press release is much more likely to actually get opened in your own inbox rather than if they're just receiving an email from a complete stranger. Hello, it's Hannah from the future here. So a couple of days later, my file corrupted. I lost the middle section of this video. Just know I spent far too much time and energy trying to fix the corrupt file and it didn't work. So we're re-recording. Let me just pick up from where I was. Now, the most trickiest thing, the thing that I found the absolute hardest is that even if you pay a PR agency, you are not guaranteed to get any coverage at all. Like nothing, and you will still have to pay them because they have done all the work. When I hired After 9, it was probably the most money I had ever invested in my business, and if I'm honest, it did make me feel a bit sick and I was very nervous. Once I signed the contract, I just decided that money is gone and let's hope for the best. So I'm so thrilled that I did get some coverage and I was really happy with the experience. The thing is with hiring PR, it's not like you are bribing journalists or buying Instagram likes. There's no guarantee. You are just paying for a service for someone to go out and represent you. However hard they might work is ultimately down to the writers and the editors about whether you are actually included in those publications. Also, just know that there are like a myriad of reasons of why you might not be chosen, and especially if your column inches or time on the television like overlaps with news. I had a project that was going to get covered by the local news. We were all set up, everything was organised. It was 10 minutes away from the interview, and then the journalist called me and said that Boris Johnson had just announced something about Barbara Windsor. I was like, isn't Barbara Windsor dead? Yes, she is dead. But apparently he had announced something to do with her dementia charity, and there was only one person covering the news that day, and I got bumped by dead Barbara Windsor.
Get out of my pub.
PR can be kind of brutal. There are some additional perks I have found from having PR. The first one is the fact that it makes that process of when you are releasing artwork into the world a little less lonely. Again, I've spoken about when you kind of release work into the world, how it can be a particularly like vulnerable and stressful moment. And so having a PR team sort of rallying around you and pushing your work out into the world definitely makes it feel like you've got extra members on your team fighting your corner, which is just really nice. The second perk to hiring PR is that it's like a fabulous way to network. It is in the interests of the PR company for you to do well. If you do well, they do well. So they start bigging you up all around town, which isn't quite like part of what you've hired them to do, but it's just a natural outcome of other people being invested in your success. So that is a lovely additional perk to having other people invested into your career. Is hiring PR enough? Even if you are picked up by publications, whether that be on or offline, or newspapers, or on TV in the news, you need to be able to direct people to an Instagram page or to a website so they can follow up and discover more about you. So even if you spend money on PR, it's still important to invest time and energy into your other platforms. So the last and final question, do I think spending all this money and this time hiring PR for a year was worth it? Well, that's kind of tricky to answer. Do I regret spending the money that I did on PR in the past year? No, I don't. Would I spend money on PR in the future? Yes, I would. Can I draw a direct line from the money that I've spent to the money that I have made? No, it's a bit more fuzzy than that. And I think of PR the same way that I think about networking. With PR and with networking, you are playing the long game. It's very rare that someone would read an article and then commission you for a piece. It's not quite how it happens. It's more like someone reads an article, starts following you, gets engaged in your work, commissions you 2 years down the line. Or perhaps someone's already following you and then they see that your work has kind of been rubber stamped by a cultural institution, which just like moves you up in almost their way that they think about you as an artist. I find it really interesting when I share publicity about my work. Quite a few people I find are actually more impressed by the fact that I have been featured on the BBC than they are by the work themselves. And I think that's kind of like the power of PR. When respected institutions talk or write about your work, it almost legitimizes what you are trying to do. And it's why these cultural institutions kind of have so much power, because they have so much influence over how people perceive you. And even I am like suckered into this, to be honest. If I see my friends featured on DZ, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, go you, because these curators and tastemakers have deemed your work good enough to talk about, whether that's right or wrong. So I hope you've really enjoyed learning about the PR behind artists. I have noticed that people actually very rarely talk about the fact that they hire PR on social media. So I hope you appreciate the transparency. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more. If you have any additional questions about PR, just drop them in the comments and I will answer them. That's all for today. I'll see you next time.